The new year is always a reminder of goals achieved, but also dreams postponed. Don't waste another 365 days before starting your dream business. Do it now with the help of Shopify. Shopify has helped millions of entrepreneurs, from household names like Skims and Allbirds to first-time business owners just getting started. With Shopify, you'll have everything you need to sell online and in person. Their built-in AI tools write product descriptions and headlines and help you edit product photos. Marketing is built in too. Create email and social campaigns that reach customers wherever they scroll. As you grow, Shopify grows with you. Handle more orders, expand to new markets, and do it all from the same dashboard. In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/income. Go to shopify.com/income. That's shopify.com/income. Hear your first this new year with Shopify by your side.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga, Birth, Babies. And today we're going to talk about toddlerhood. I know we talk a lot about pregnancy and parenthood and even infanthood, but we don't talk a lot about toddlerhood and the big emotions toddlers have. And then often for families that are expanding, introducing a toddler to their new sibling. We're also going to talk about the sharing phase and how that can be challenging. And then also some parent guilt, that transition, that guilt of transition from one child to having two. So to have this conversation, I have Devon Kuntzman. Let me tell you a little bit about Devon. So she is the founder of Transforming Toddlerhood, a certified coach and a mom of a spirited 3-year-old. She's on the mission to rewrite the narrative of the troubled twos and beyond, helping parents see toddlerhood as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build social, emotional, and relationship skills. Her new book, Transforming Toddlerhood, is designed to support, not guilt, new parents and offering tools, encouragement, and a fresh perspective to turn this challenging season into one of the most meaningful chapters of the parenthood journey. So I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation because I can remember back to the toddler years and there were challenges. And if I had some better perspective and really a guide to understanding toddlerhood, or instead of being the terrible twos to be a time to embrace, it might have been a little bit smoother. So I'm excited for you to hear this conversation as well as for you to find Devon's book. Now, before we get to that conversation, I always love to give updates about what's happening at Prenatal Yoga Center. And I say it every time, but it is true. Really the best way to check out our most up-to-date schedule for our in-person classes, our online classes, our on-demand classes, our workshop. Oh, we have so much. Our teacher training, our blog, our podcast, everything is on the website. So check that out, prenatalyogacenter.com. While you're there, we have some free yoga videos. Check those out. But also subscribe to our newsletter because each week I give a little update about what's happening at the studio, as well as some tips, as well as the latest podcast. And then it's been the newest thing I've done for the last year. I do some pictures from our community so we can celebrate what I call leader of the pack. That is the person that is the furthest along in that class. And then usually some cute baby shots and maybe some community pictures. So you can check out our community. I also want to say thank you for everyone that has left a rating and review for the podcast. I really appreciate your time with that. And it helps people find us. So if you have a moment, please leave a rating and review if you haven't already. And then the last thing, another thank you to the community, because after over 400 podcast episodes, sometimes I'm scratching my head thinking, what else am I going to talk about? And I love that the community reaches out and gives me ideas or even people connecting me to people who would be a great guest. So thank you for community and for helping this podcast really be the best it can. All right, I think that's enough of me. We're going to take a super quick break. We come back. Please enjoy my conversation with Devon.
This episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. Holiday cheer is here, and Ulta Beauty has gifts for everyone on your list. Treat them to fan-favorite gift sets from Charlotte Tilbury and Peach and Lily. Go all out with timeless fragrances from YSL, Ariana Grande, and Carolina Herrera. And you can never go wrong with an Ulta Beauty gift card. Head to Ulta Beauty for gifts that make the holidays brighter and even more beautiful. Ulta Beauty. Gifting happens here.
Hi, Devon. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to chat. So I'm thrilled that we got introduced to each other because as I started to look into your work, I was thinking like, okay, toddlerhood, that is a challenging time. So we need to have a conversation about that. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so passionate about toddlerhood, so I could just talk about it all day.
Well, we certainly will. All right. So let's start with, I'd love to learn a little bit about you and what led you to focusing your work on toddlerhood.
Absolutely. So I have a background, both a degree in psychology with a focus in child development, and I'm also an ICF certified coach. And for many years, I was a nanny for families all over the world. And I really found during that time taking care of so many different toddlers and working with so many different family dynamics, I started to notice a pattern where there was a lot of frustration in the communication between parents and toddlers, where toddlers were crying and trying to communicate one thing and parents were misinterpreting it as something else. Like, for example, this one moment sticks out in my mind where a parent came home from work and I was giving her little one a bath, and little one just starts crying and, so upset. And that mom just seems so defeated in that moment. Like, oh, why'd I even come home from work if this is how it's going to be? She was so excited to see her toddler, but her toddler was trying to communicate, I'm tired, I missed you, all of these things. But to her, she's like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. Why'd I even come home? And so I just noticed a lot of frustration on both sides. And then I had my own moment where for a long time, I equated the work I was doing as if, these young children, if they had quote unquote good behavior, then I was doing a good job at my job. And if they're having bad behavior, then I was doing a bad job. And then once I realized that all behavior is communication, my whole world shifted and Transforming Toddlerhood was born because I just wanted, first of all, to dispel the myth that toddlerhood is terrible. Toddlerhood is, of course, a challenging developmental period, but also critical for setting the foundation for the rest of the child's life, for their brain development and emotional resilience. And I just really wanted to support parents in them feeling empowered and confident in their parenting skills.
I love what you said about the behaviors communication. I remember speaking to another guest who we had a conversation about the quote unquote difficult child and how they're labeled, and kind of like what you said, like good behavior means you're doing well, bad behavior, you're not doing well. And we label it just like we label kids. And when she said something similar, it was such a light bulb moment. And I can even relate to that with my kids who are far older than toddlerhood. They're 11 and 14. But when there's certain behaviors, I still think they're trying to communicate something with me, frustration or anxiety or something. And having that compassion and that lens, I think can make such a huge difference in how we parent and also how we perceive kids.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where it's so challenging, right? Because our brains automatically label things in the world and our experiences and people, because it's how we kind of categorize and make sense of what we experience and what we see. At the same time, those labels can really have an impact in how we respond or react to a child's behavior, and also the stories we tell ourselves about that child and the stories we tell ourselves about how we're doing as a parent or caregiver. And so those labels, while they feel useful for our brains, they actually can be such a hindrance when we're trying to really parent in an empowered, effective way.
Oh, I totally agree. So I want to talk a little bit about, with your new book, about the sibling relationship. So I read a quote where you said, time flies and toddlerhood arrives suddenly. Can you talk about what parents should know about that sudden shift into toddlerhood? And I still remember it, like there's moments of scars. I'm like, oh my God, you're not a cute baby. You're you're a little devil right now. And I mean that in the most loving way. But
Right.
it might affect family dynamics, especially when introducing a new sibling or a new sibling's on the way.
So what's really happening here is that babies relate to themselves as an extension of us, and we often relate to our babies as an extension of us as well. So everyone's really relating to each other as one and the same. Then all of a sudden in toddlerhood, your little one starts to realize that they are a separate individual from you. And so they realize that their words, well, not words at that age, but their actions have an impact on the environment around them. And so you'll start to see them having their own agenda. And it might look like at 9 months old, refusing to have their diaper changed, or if they're walking, running away instead of getting their diaper changed. Things like this, where you start to see your child experiment with the idea of being a separate individual, because toddlerhood's all about becoming a separate individual. But the challenge is that we're still often relating to our child as an extension of us. And that's where we get frustrated whenever we think we should be able to control them, but we realize that there is this lack of control, and that control is truly an illusion. You can't control another individual. So what's happening is, as your child tries to become their own person and develop a sense of self for the first time in this transition, toddlerhood becomes a very egocentric developmental period. And this makes it even more challenging when a new baby is on the way, because toddlers are already in that me, mine way of being. And so, of course, sharing the most important person in their world can feel really challenging, because they think everything that's happening in the world is for them and because of them.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you start talking about that whole controlling thing and learning that, or realizing your child, you have little control over them, I feel like I see that if that can be embodied in toddlerhood, maybe it will help in that whole, as they get older, feeling like we can control them in helicopter parenting. I'm just shooting from the hip. That's just what kind of came at me. If we can let them have some independence early, then maybe we wouldn't be hovering later.
Yeah, what I always say is that, while we can't control another individual, we can influence them. And when we have that influence, and we can create, positive and negative influence, but the more positive influence we can create, the more cooperation and connection that we create. And that can really be helpful. And it really stems from this. This is a bigger idea that we won't really get into now, that I do cover in my book that's out now, this idea of being in charge versus being in control. When you're in charge, you're the leader and guide, but you're still partnering with your child to get to where you're going, versus being in control is all about trying to, create compliance above all else, where the child's feelings, emotions, and needs aren't taken into consideration. Usually backfires.
I really like that. I'm really excited to read your book to read more about that. So going back to kind of that whole introduction of siblings, I know that a lot of our community members fall into this category. We get a lot of second-time parents where they have that whole family unit. It's going well. They're nervous about bringing the new baby in. How is it going to work? How can they foster sibling bonding? So let's jump into that. So what are some intentional ways parents can start to foster a sibling bond right before or after the new baby arrives?
Absolutely. So before the baby arrives, of course, talking about what's happening, that a baby is going to be joining the family, and reading lots of books about becoming a sibling. Books are one of the best ways that we can really teach toddlers about what is coming and what is happening. Books can be so supportive for working through big emotions, starting school, all types of things. And the transition to becoming a big sibling, books can be very, very useful there, and a great way to start the conversation. Also, potentially getting your child a baby doll, and starting to talk about how to take care of a baby, how to interact and touch a baby, because oftentimes we assume that toddlers should just know how gentle they need to be with a baby, but they don't just inherently know that. And we have to kind of show them. And then what's so great is that when baby actually comes, now when you're feeding the baby, your toddler has a baby that they can feed as well. So that's super helpful. And I think that once baby comes, the best thing to do is realize that the baby can't talk. And so trying to talk for your baby to create that dialogue and to give your child positive feedback when they have really nice interactions with the baby can just really strengthen that sibling bond. Like, for example, say the baby is like looking towards your toddler, you can say, "Oh, look, she's looking at you and smiling. She loves you so much." Or if that your toddler brings like a pacifier or something to the baby, say, "Oh, she appreciates that so much. See, you've helped her and, she's looking at you. She's happy to see you." Things like that, where your baby can't talk. So you kind of have to be you have to give words to the situation to build that bond.
Oh, I love that. I kind of wish I did that with my kids because it is really cute. Although we did introduce the doll thing, the doll idea, and my son took the doll and threw it across the room.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad you said that, right? Because we have to be prepared for the full spectrum of emotions with a toddler. And so many parents, so I talk to parents about this topic a lot. And so many parents are like, "Oh my gosh, like my toddler is so upset. It seems like they just don't like the baby." They're saying, "Send the baby back to the hospital. Put the baby back in your tummy. What am I doing wrong?" And I'm saying to them, listen, you're not doing something wrong, nor is your toddler. They're going through an egocentric developmental period, and they are now wondering, what is their place in the family? What is their role in the family? Are they still loved in the same way? They're trying to get all of these all these questions answered on the inside so they can, really accept these changes. So throwing a baby across the room doesn't necessarily mean that your toddler is like, and when I say baby, I mean baby doll across the room. Let me just clarify here. The baby doll across the room doesn't mean that your toddler is like upset or just not going to like the baby. They could be looking for a reaction as well, because toddlers are really great at experimenting and exploring and testing limits. And so, just remember that this is a process and the full spectrum of emotion is valid, and you can still set limits and teach skills while supporting your child's big emotions.
So that kind of comes up with the whole sharing thing, like they have to share the parents. So, and I think that can be challenging for toddlers. I think it's challenging for a lot of people in general. So how can toddlers work on that sharing? So I guess it shouldn't be surprising that as the siblings get older and they want to play too, but even in that beginning stage where we have to teach them, you need to share. So how can parents support both children going through this tricky transition?
Yes. I mean, this is what's so challenging, because when you have a baby, those first 6 months or so, baby's not going to have much of they're not going to have much to say about whether or not your toddler takes a toy from them or gives them a toy. Like there's not going to be a lot of reaction there. And so it's really easy just to let it slide if your toddler is like constantly just taking like toys from the baby because they don't want the baby to touch it. The challenge is that once your baby starts crawling, gets around like 8, 9, 10 months old, your baby's going to start reacting to toddler taking toys. The challenge is that your toddler's already set up this habit, but now the relationship dynamic is changing. And so it can be a lot harder. So I always say from the beginning, if your toddler wants the toy that the baby has, implementing this idea of child-led turn taking, it can be really supportive, or even just saying, "Oh, look, baby's playing with that. I see you'd like to play with it. I wonder if you could offer a trade." And then, trying to at least get your toddler to offer a trade, which is going to help set up that sibling relationship for sharing down the road. Now, of course, when baby grows up, they might not accept the trade, but in the beginning they will, and it will already start to create this habit or idea that you can't just take things. But on the flip side, when baby starts crawling, toddlers get so frustrated when baby is now like knocking down their block tower and all of these things. So I always say, find a safe place for your toddler to play where they can get away from the baby if they want. So a lot of people think, oh, like if I have like a play yard or a gate, that like maybe my baby's in there. No, usually your toddler wants to go in there so your baby can't get to them and they have a place to play, or like up on a table or in their room, somewhere that they can go to play if they want to be on their own and not interact with baby at that moment.
That's really smart. I had not thought of that. And I wonder how many people, now that they hear this, are going to implement that, because I could see the toddler like nicely playing and the baby comes, destructing through, and that just creates chaos. And that also can just start setting boundaries and also help the toddler have some quiet time to be on their own. I feel like kids are constantly wanting stimulation, and if they're happily playing, like we want to support that.
Yes. And it's kind of like flipping it, because a lot of times things are marketed like, oh, baby stays in here to like keep them safe. Right. But honestly, like if you've childproofed the area where baby can kind of explore and go around, it's really your toddler that's going to be happy to be in the confined space, because they're just trying to like protect their toys and their play.
That's smart. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to start talking about toddler hitting, because I can imagine that toddler at some point is going to get frustrated and maybe hit the baby. So let's talk about how parents can best respond to that. We'll be right back.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
In Walmart's Newville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Newville, East, West, South, and North could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart? Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Okay, we're back. So, and I'm not saying that toddlers are mean at all, but I can imagine after time that baby, and I'm not saying hitting like hard, but be like, and kind of like push them away or something. So when toddler hitting happens, and it does sometimes, what's the best way for parents to respond in that moment?
Yes. Well, the first thing that we want to do, I guess, in that moment, we're going to talk about like in the moment immediately, but then other things you need to think about too. So first thing you want to do is create safety, because you're not going to think straight if you feel like the baby's safety is at risk, right? If there's a threat or even a perceived threat, you're going to go into that stress response and probably have a really big reaction towards your toddler, just because, you're exhausted, you might be under-resourced, and you just want to keep baby safe. So the first thing you want to do is create safety. First, that physical safety, then the emotional safety. So creating safety might look like moving baby out of the way to a safe spot that you can put baby down and they're safe, or moving your toddler to the couch or somewhere else, but definitely separating them so there's no more threat of someone getting hurt. Then you can take some deep breaths and say, this is not an emergency. I am safe. My children are safe. From there, you want to start thinking about, why did my child hit? Is this a bid for connection to try to get your attention? Is this a bid for like connection with the baby, like wanting to play but not sure how to initiate it, not knowing how to really interact with the baby? Is your toddler overstimulated because baby's been crying and now they're at their wit's end, right? And so now they're being reactionary. Is your toddler frustrated because they're just going through this whole big change and they're wondering, what's my place here? And why is baby still here? Why didn't they go back to the hospital? Things like that. So you want to just start to get curious about what's happening, because the more you can kind of pinpoint what's driving the behavior below the surface, the easier it is to transform the behavior. But regardless, you can say something like, you hit baby and hitting hurts. It's not safe. I will not let you hit. Next time, and then this is where it's helpful to know what might your toddler be communicating. So you might say, next time you want mommy's attention, you can tap my leg and say, excuse me, mommy. Or next time you want next time you feel frustrated, you can say, I'm mad. So basically what we want to do is think about this recipe for effective discipline that I like to call it, which is creating connection, setting limits and following through, and then teaching skills. Because in the end, we want to teach your child a better way to communicate their feelings, emotions, and needs. And that's what's truly going to transform the behavior. At the same time, we need to keep everyone safe. So establishing safety, so then we can respond instead of intentionally respond instead of react, then things are going to go a lot more smoothly. Yes. I mean, this is where when we think about, okay, there's a couple of things. First, we want to just understand that all feelings and emotions are okay, but not all behaviors. So we don't want to shut down our child's feelings, emotions, and needs because those are very valid experiences of our child. And we have to set limits on unsafe behavior and unacceptable behavior. So that's why I created the recipe for effective discipline. Once we have established that physical safety, and then we started to create the emotional safety by grounding ourselves, we can address behavior by creating connections, setting limits and following through, and teaching skills. Just like baking a cake, you need all the ingredients for the cake to be successful. So we want to have all of the ingredients. If we're only setting limits, but we're not working on the connection piece or teaching skills, you're going to see the behaviors pop up again and again, and it's going to get more challenging, your relationship with your child. That being said, we want to make sure when we're setting limits to also realize that setting the limit is not the end of the journey. Setting the limit is the beginning of the journey. And oftentimes parents just expect their toddler to just comply with the limit that they set and meet the limit. But the thing is that toddlers have very immature brains. And so they lack a lot of impulse control and are usually unable to follow through without our support. So I always say, and I have a whole chapter in my book dedicated to setting limits. And one thing that I like to talk about to illustrate this is say that we have 3 jobs as the adult, and also the child has 3 jobs. So it's our job to set the limit. It's the toddler's job to test the limit because they're wired to experiment and explore. It's our job to follow through on the limit, and it's the toddler's job to have a reaction, either cry, maybe have a tantrum, maybe even hit or kick, something like that, as they start to realize that they are not all powerful and that they're not in control of that situation, because toddlers have a developmental need to have a sense of control. But as they're trying to become their own individual, it can feel frustrating to not be in control. So then it's our job to support their feelings and emotions, and it's the toddler's job to accept the limit. We cannot force them to accept the limit, but the crying and upset that comes whenever we follow through is part of their process of accepting the limit.
I feel like you could have said toddler and substitute that with teen or tween.
Yes. Well, because, the teen years are truly the second toddlerhood because they're going through like another massive brain reorganization and brain growth period. And that's where we see that chaos all over again from the child trying to individuate, because the tween and teen years is like the second round of becoming an individual.
Well, I'm kind of loving this because those that can, I don't want to say master, but get a grip and a strong foundation during the toddler years, maybe the tween years may not be so hard because they're like, okay, we've been through something similar, different issues, but same kind of change and this, like that metamorphosis. So I'm kind of loving this for all ages.
Oh, absolutely. With my book, everyone's like, oh, well, this is just for parents of kids ages 1 to 5. I'm like, well, that's
no, I don't think
the
so.
examples that I use, but this book is appropriate for all parents of all children, because in the end, like, we are learning relationship skills. I always say parenting is one type of relationship that you're in. So spoiler alert, a lot of things that you're going to learn from me at Transforming Toddlerhood and in my book, you're going to be able to apply to all different types of relationships with your parenting partner, your boss, your peers, your kids, all, your in-laws, everyone. And so it's just amazing because this is all, in the end, all relationship skills.
So I want to talk about parent guilt. I feel like I'm constantly feeling like I failed and have guilt all the time. So, and I don't think I'm alone. I think many parents feel guilty during the transition into toddlerhood, maybe as we just talked about the teen years, just in general, parent guilt, and then worrying about giving enough for what we're talking about for new babies and toddlerhood to either child. So what advice do you give to help parents release that guilt and feel confident in their parenting choices?
Yes. Well, what I want to say is that it's easier to slip into that place, right? Especially when things are going differently than you envisioned in your brain, right? And so this is just really, it's really important to know that your child does not need a perfect parent. You do not need to be a robot. They need a human being parent. And being a human being inherently means that you're going to make mistakes, that you're going to learn as you go, and that is okay. It's really about being vulnerable and being willing to learn alongside your child, because then when things go sideways, you can talk about it. You can repair the relationship. You can help your toddler process what is happening. And that doesn't happen if we're a perfect parent. So all of those challenges that seem like they're going sideways, they're actually opportunities for learning. I talk about this a lot in my book, where kids are learning conflict resolution skills, relationship skills, all of these skills through us when we are willing to be a human being parent and not striving for that perfection. So I always say, stop looking in the rearview mirror, stop living your life in woulda, coulda, shoulda land, and look out the windshield, look at the horizon, where you're going, and say to yourself, what did I learn from this situation? What do I need to practice to be successful here? And then go do a redo and practice again.
That is good. So I feel like this still happens with my kids, where I feel torn between the attention I'm giving, and I want to give both a lot of attention. And I can just remember back when I had a toddler and then I had a newborn and having that same struggle. And I don't think that, again, that's particularly unique. So how can parents nurture and continue that connection with their toddler while still meeting the needs of their newborn?
Yes. Well, one thing that you can try, this is a very tangible thing, is instead of blaming your baby for a reason why you can't do something with your toddler, like, for example, oh, I can't play with you, I have to feed the baby, I always like to say, turn the no into a not yet. So instead, you might say, oh, wow, I'm so excited to play with you. What do you want to play? Oh, you want to build with the magnetiles? Yes. Okay. I'm going to feed baby. And when I'm done, I'm going to join you. You can get started. Let's bring the tiles over here. Okay. Show me how you're getting started. And baby and I are going to watch you, and then we'll join in. So see, we're turning the no into a not yet, which can be really supportive for a toddler.
It can also help with lack of resentment, because if they're always hearing like, no, I can't play with you because of baby. And then the toddler's like, I hate that baby. Like, so.
Right. Because because your toddler, there's an innate sibling bond. Innately, there is that love there, but there can be a lot of frustration if your toddler feels blocked by the baby at every turn. And so that's why turning a no into a not yet is so crucial, because it can be supportive on so many levels in parenting when you have a baby and a toddler. And then the other thing I would say is just try to create 10 minutes a day of child-led play, whether your parenting partner is taking care of the baby is sleeping, something like this, but where, your phone is down, baby is content, and you just focus on letting your child lead the way, your toddler just, following their lead, delighting in them. That concentrated 10 minutes of just doing whatever they want during that time can really fill their cup for connection and can really create a ripple effect through the rest of the day.
Oh, I love that. How, if you could give parents one or two simple actionable tools to ease that toddler to sibling transition, what would that be?
Yes, I would say don't shut down your toddler's big emotions and behaviors. Like, don't put them in timeout or give them a punishment for struggling or having a hard time. Get curious about what's happening. Validate their feelings, emotions, and experience so they can process the change while still setting limits on unsafe behavior and teaching skills. The other thing I would say is avoid big transitions right before you have a baby. It can be so tempting to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have 2 kids in diapers. Let me just potty train. We have 6 weeks before the baby comes. Let me just potty train now. Or oh, we really want that crib for the new baby. So let me just get my toddler into a big bed and, so we have that crib in a few weeks. Because having a new sibling can be such a big adjustment for some toddlers, doing another big transition at the same time can be overwhelming for everyone involved. So trying to keep other transitions to a minimum when new baby is coming can really ease the overall transition and really reduce the amount of stress both for parents and for toddlers.
I really appreciate the whole transition thing. We totally were guilty of we need that crib.
It's so
we
tempting.
Made a big celebration of you're in a big boy bed, you're in a toddler bed, and it did not go well.
Yes. Exactly. I see this every day, and it makes sense in your head until you go to execute it. And then it's oh, wait, we should not have done this. And, and it's okay. We live and we learn. We can always bounce back. But, that's why I'm here to say, reduce the amount of big transitions your toddler is going to go through the closer baby is to arriving.
That's really smart. Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents? Okay, we'll be right back.
Oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
We are back. So I'm curious, you're a parent, this is your focus, toddlerhood and work with babies. So I'm curious what your tip's going to be. So what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
I just want everyone to know that this is a big transition for everyone involved, and it will have ups and downs. Your toddler might seem unfazed for the first 2 months, then all of a sudden they hit a rough patch, or they have trouble the first couple of weeks and then it's smooth sailing. There will be ups and downs, but that doesn't mean anything is wrong or broken. It is just part of the process. So instead of focusing on the things that are not going quote unquote right, or the behavior that you don't want to see, focus on the behavior that you want to see and acknowledge it out loud to your toddler, because that shows your toddler you're paying attention, and they're going to be more motivated to have that behavior because they notice you noticing them. So at the same time, you'll be training your brain to see the positives and to see that behavior. And so it's going to just create a much better positive frame of mind for you during this transition.
That was perfect. So you've talked about your book. Where can people find your work and your new book?
Yes. So my book is available everywhere you can buy books. You can also find it on Amazon or go to my website, transformingtoddlerhood.com/book. This book is so exciting because it's like the what to expect for toddlerhood. It's an all-in-one comprehensive reference guide for every challenge you might face while parenting a toddler. And then you can also find me on Instagram if you'd like to continue the conversation at Transforming Toddlerhood.
Oh, Devon, thank you so much for your time and for sharing about your book. And honestly, I'm going to say for all the parents, thank you for writing this book. It seems like it's something really important. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
This has been an episode of Yoga, Birth, Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.